You've probably heard that 90% of restaurants fail in their first year, and that number is completely made up, invented for a 2003 American Express commercial with no actual data behind it. The real story is both less dramatic and more interesting. Depending on which dataset you trust, first-year restaurant failure rates range from under 1% in some recent industry tracking to as high as 30% according to the National Restaurant Association, with University of California, Berkeley research landing around 17%. That is a wide range, and it exists because restaurants get counted differently depending on whether a business closing and reopening under new ownership counts as a failure or just a change of hands, and depending on whether a chain relocating one unit gets counted the same way as an independent restaurant shutting down for good. But even the more conservative numbers describe an industry where a meaningful share of new restaurants do not make it, and the reason almost never has anything to do with the food. The myth persists because a scary round number is a lot more shareable than an accurate messy one, and nobody fact-checks a statistic that already confirms what people assumed was true. The real explanation sits in the cost structure. Food costs typically run between 28 and 35% of gross sales, depending on the type of restaurant, with fine dining often running higher on ingredients but compensating with premium menu prices. Labor costs run another 25 to 35% on top of that, varying by format. Quick service restaurants tend to sit closer to 25%, while fine dining can climb toward 35% because of the sheer number of staff a full-service dining room requires per table. Add those two together, and you get what the industry calls prime cost. And a well-run restaurant tries to keep that combined number between 55 and 65% of every dollar that comes in the door. That already leaves less than half of revenue to cover rent, utilities, equipment, insurance, marketing, and any actual profit, before a single plate has been sold at a loss to food waste or a no-show reservation that leaves a table empty during a fully booked service. After all of that, the average full-service restaurant profit margin lands somewhere between 3 and 6% of gross sales. And one industry report found the true average closer to 6.2% even in a good year. Quick service and fast casual restaurants tend to do slightly better, often in the 6 to 9% range, because they carry lower labor costs and turn tables faster, but the underlying math is the same industry-wide. Compare that to a typical retail business or software company operating with margins several times higher, and it becomes obvious why a restaurant with an entire dining room full of paying customers every night can still be losing money. Heading into this year, industry surveys found that as many as 42% of restaurant operators describe their business as unprofitable, which means a packed dining room on a Friday night is not actually proof that the business behind it is healthy. This thin margin is exactly why small shocks cause outsized damage. 67% of a full-service restaurant's costs go directly to purchasing and wages, according to one industry analysis, which means there is very little room to absorb a bad month. A supply chain spike in food prices, a minimum wage increase, an unexpectedly slow week from bad weather, or simply hiring one extra manager can be the difference between a restaurant that is profitable and one that is not. Restaurants nationally also lose an estimated $162 billion a year to food waste alone. And any operation that is not tightly tracking inventory is bleeding out through a wound it cannot even see. A walk-in cooler that runs a few degrees too warm, produced ordered in bulk that spoils before it gets used, or a kitchen that overportions every plate by a few ounces can each quietly erase what little profit margin existed in the first place, week after week, without a single obvious red flag on the books. Ask people why restaurants fail and most will guess bad food or bad service, but the more common culprits are poor location decisions, insufficient starting cash flow to survive the slow ramp-up period, inexperienced management, and what the industry calls poor menu market fit, meaning a menu that does not match what the local customer base actually wants to pay for. A restaurant can have genuinely great food and still close, simply because the fixed costs of rent and labor were sized for a volume of customers that never fully materialized. Owners frequently underestimate how long it takes a new restaurant to build a regular customer base, and a location that looked perfect on paper can quietly starve a business of the foot traffic it needed to hit its numbers in the critical first 6 months, long before word of mouth has a chance to catch up. So the next time a beloved local restaurant closes its doors, it almost certainly was not because the food got worse. It is because the entire business model runs on one of the thinnest profit margins in modern commerce, where almost every dollar is already spoken for before the doors even open.